kind of wanted to do a video on the change out the Helix's expression pedal washer, kind of get the expression pedal working a little bit better. And I also have somewhere. I also have the replacement switches for the foot switches on the pedal board. My number 2 switch, or my, actually, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. My number 9 switch on the Helix is getting a little bit goofy. These are supposed to be the switches that you're replacing with, but I'm kind of scared to do it. But I do want to fix the expression pedal. But, I probably wasn't talking in the mic well. I'm a little bit too tired. We had our Aloha Jam a couple days. I was there earlier this morning at the jumps and had a late show. A late show last night. So I think I'm just gonna get through this, and then I'm gonna not sure what. Go home, go to skate park, just go to sleep. Who knows? But I will. Let's get to where we're here. Let's see. So this is a video called "The Entire History of Reaper" by Asodus 099 X. I don't know how you want to pronounce this thing. But every time I see one of these videos or documentaries about Reaper, they almost always leave me and Christoph out of it, and it's kind of not how that goes. So let's just watch this, and may or may not. I'd actually seen part of it before, and I actually commented that I hope it doesn't leave out the 2/3 of the developers or the history. But let's just watch it. I'm gonna watch as long as I can before I fall asleep. So here we go.
Hey guys, before the video starts, we've just opened up a Discord server for the Squash community to talk about production, videos, and music. So if you'd like to join, the link will be in the description and the pinned comment. Thanks, now on to the video. Reaper is one of the new kids on the block when it comes.
In 2008, maybe even 2010, you could say it's one of the new kids. But, Pro Tools got really usable maybe 7 years before it. You could argue when the usable version of Pro Tools for completely replacing multi-track recorders was, but Reaper wasn't that far behind, and it was before, like, let's see, some newer stuff, Studio One, Harrison Mix Bus and stuff. So I don't know. It's not all that new anymore. I remember when it was new, but and we were the new guy on the block, but not so new anymore.
To DAWs. Just like when you have a household full of older brothers, the youngest one tends to get the short end of the stick. However, I think we should give Reaper a fair shake. And
I don't know who's giving us the short end of the stick. I don't know what you mean. And again, at the time of this, it was, let's say, 6 or 7 years after Pro Tools got viable. And now we are almost 20 years. Reaper's 19th anniversary is already gone. So that's kind of, I don't know how much this matters.
Dive into the history of one of the younger contenders in the music software industry. Most audio workstations were first released or had precursors in the 90s or even earlier, like Q.
Well, let's look at this list. PreSonus, definitely not. Traction, definitely not. Bitwig, definitely not. Reason, definitely not. Fruit Loops, definitely not. So yeah, I don't know about that. Some of these are newer than Reaper as well.
Cubase and Pro Tools. Contrary to that, Reaper was released in 2006 by the company Kakos. Things were weird in 2006. Twitter had just launched, Enron was on trial for conspiracy and fraud, and we had a spinach-related E. coli outbreak in the States. Anyways, I was always drawn to this program simply because of the name. It's a kinda badass name for a program. Reaper was originally an acronym for Rapid Environment for Audio Production, Engineering, and Recording. Since it was so late to the party for music software, the original version of Reaper was offered basically for free just to get...
Wait. How is, again, it's not so late to the party. There's newer DAWs than Reaper. Like, I don't know why he keeps going over this.
The Party for Music software, the original version of Reaper was offered basically for free just to get the name out there and people using it.
No. Reaper's not free. I know he said basically for free, but it is honorware. It wasn't in any way priced that way to get the name out there. Maybe he'll get into what Justin's background is, but it's not. I mean, you can run the numbers yourself. It wasn't done to get the name out there. That is a horrible misconception. We got the name out there by getting the name out there, and didn't spend a penny on advertising. So, but yeah, that was not true at all.
The developer of Reaper named Justin Frankel decided to start his own company after leaving Nullsoft, which is another company he also founded in '97. His stated goal when creating Reaper...
Yeah, so he sold Nullsoft to AOL Time Warner. That's and that's why a lot of this money talk probably isn't accurate. He doesn't... I was going to say he doesn't need it, but he was pretty well off in that.
Was simply to put the user first above all else. This is blatantly apparent in almost every aspect of the program,
Yes.
all the way
I'm glad he got that. You put the user first, wanted to make everything ergonomic, wanted to give... So my whole philosophy, and I know he says this is a developer of Reaper, but there's also me and Christoph Theobald. And, what I wanted was the equivalent of a patch bay, a screwdriver, and a soldering iron, and a handful of connectors and cables like you would have in a studio. And the DAWs that were out at the time, you just could not route the way you could in the real world. And it was kind of a pain, especially for things like side chaining and stuff. And there were sort of ways you could do this in Pro Tools and stuff. But Reaper's routing is pretty incredible. And there's a reason for it. And in a large part, I'll just show you, it was kind of based on RME's Total Mix. And I don't know if I want to bother getting into the story, but I did send Justin an RME HDSP 9652 early on in Reaper's development. I don't even know if the name was out by then, but if you look at the routing matrix, very similar to how Reaper's routing matrix works, and this is why. Because we were kind of RME nuts.
down to its price. Presently, Reaper sells parent in almost every aspect of the program, all the way down to its price. Presently, Reaper sells for $225, but you can get a discounted license if you're an individual not using it for commercial use, or you're a nonprofit organization. Starting out, it was very bare bones and only came with the essentials and was basically a sandbox for you to work with.
And it's still a sandbox for us to work with.
I'm not opposed to a program having few stock sounds, but I think that it does make it a lot harder to learn when you have to figure out how to download free third-party plugins and samples, but
Reaper's job was not to provide plugins. It was it's like any other DAW. You run whatever VSTs or whatever you want in there. That's I don't get it, but I will say that Reaper did come out with and this is where they're not talking about the other developers, but I wanted a noise gate with the side chain and look ahead, like the Drummer gate, or I wanted to act like a Drummer gate, but I wanted to have look ahead and some other features. Let's go to Regate here. So here's Regate. You have and the ability to send out a MIDI note for triggering stuff. You had look ahead. You have all the controls that you normally have. Hysteresis control for on and off threshold. A key filter, but you could also sidechain it. See, it says got the auxiliary inputs, and this gate I'm pretty sure there wasn't any equivalent to it at the time. And so, it actually came out with some pretty good plugins. And I know this is going to make Dan Worrell mad, but Recomp was a compressor workstation. You could do a lot with this by choosing what's the detector, feedback, sidechain, regular main inputs. And again, you have look ahead, New York compression, right? You can do parallel with it. This was, so it's not, and of course Reaper didn't come with sounds. It's not a music creation system. It was more for an audio engineering system. And so you don't really care about what virtual instruments it comes with. But anyway, did come with some really good plugins, and those really good plugins is a lot of what brought people to the program. It was I was sharing, I made some early videos on how to use these plugins and stuff. People looked at it and they go, oh, I can do what I used to do with my patch bay and my tape recorder and my mixing console. I can do it in this program, which I can't do this way in other programs. So
digress. More interestingly, though, Justin Frankel has a long history of creating things before Reaper, so let's travel back to peer into the doorway of a pre-Reaper Justin Frankel. In his high school years, Justin described himself as programming just for fun. However, the first time he realized his programs could be used for a multitude of purposes and by many people was when he started writing programs for other students to use in his school. His first large-scale project in high school was creating his own local email service for students to send emails to each other during school hours. Interestingly, during this time in his life, he had no real connection to the music industry and was entirely on the programming side of things. It wouldn't be until much later that he decided to pursue music-related endeavors and eventually create Reaper. But before Reaper, though, he had created an app called Winamp in 1997, which is...
So nowadays, I don't even know if people know what Winamp is, but Winamp was the MP3 player, the multimedia player. Winamp TV introduced me to early video streamers like the Infidel guy or James Randi found at the James Randi Education Foundation. Winamp was essential back in the day. It was like the TV station.
Was one of the earliest media players. His stated reason for creating the program was because the media players before this on Windows did not have the feature list he wanted, like creating playlists. He would sell Winamp 2 years later to AOL for a huge $80 million.
Okay, so there you go. That's why. There's your 80 million. I didn't know if they were going to talk about this. And I told the story 4,000 times, but, we were just talking about that RME audio interface that I sent to him. I didn't know. I thought this was just some poor guy making this thing. And, everybody always talks about Kenny Gioia. So the reason I even heard about Justin was, I was already working on, what would become Mixbus, but so this is another super well-off guy. What that I didn't know at the time was one of the co-founders of Amazon was working on that project, but it seemed like it was going to be too much like Cubase and really wasn't going to handle the audio the way I wanted, and so that's kind of how I ended up with the Reaper thing. But anyway, Kenny Gioia was. There was a forum on, I think on the Womb or whatever that used to be where Fletcher and Mixer Man, all those guys, Slipper Man were, and they were making fun of this guy for this program he was working on called Ninjam. And Ninjam was a kind of collaboration software you can play at the same time as other people on the internet. And I looked at it, it had a mixer. It had sort of a plug-in hosting interface. It had faders, it had pan controls, and I'm like, hey, this is the basics for a DAW. And so that's when I started talking with Justin. And when he was first developing it, he's telling me he's got a Sound Blaster or something, sound card. So I took the last 10 minutes I had to my name and sent him this audio interface, an RME HDSP 9652, sent it to him through the mail, thinking, oh man, this poor guy, he's doing so much programming this stuff, but he can't even afford a good interface, and not that I could afford anything. I was homeless at the time, and but I did have access to this gear, and I sent him this thing, and he told me, don't worry about it, you don't need to do that. And months later, he's like, hey, check out Rolling Stone. And I can't remember if he's on the cover or inside, but he was in Rolling Stone magazine as the world's most dangerous geek. And then I found out that he had, made a gajillion dollars selling Winamp to AOL. And so it just kills me, like I thought he was so poor, and the last thing I could do instead of eating, I sent him a sound card, and well, there you go. But this tells about it. He sold this for $80 million to AOL Time Warner. I don't know if it's 80 million, but the number's always changing, but whatever. It was a lot of money.
These events would eventually lead to Justin working on Reaper in 2005 and releasing it only a year later. The first public release of Reaper came in December 23rd, 2005. Even before that, though, Justin had built prototypes that never saw the light of day, but he does provide screenshots on Reaper's website. Only a couple weeks after it was released, it got the ability to load VSTs, which we take for granted now. This version had a pretty capable mixer, automation, multiple tracks, and pretty basic MIDI support. You could see Justin's vision in the first release of wanting to put the consumer above all else. No bells and whistles, just clean and plain what was needed to produce music.
Well, I wouldn't say no bells and whistles. I would say that, you could call it, that's an opinion, but, and again, this isn't Justin. A lot of this, Justin's not an audio engineer, right? But he does make music, and he's a very, very, very smart guy. But a lot of this stuff, the basic no frills things were what we wanted. Routing, which nobody else had, not even close. The routing in Reaper is still, I think, untouched to this day. I thought by now all the DAWs would be able to do basic routing, but most of them can't. And that wasn't Justin. That was, it was Justin who programmed it. But these are what I brought to the table. What the audio engineer needed for ergonomics and basic sense. And just say, when you say it doesn't have the bells and whistles, all you're really talking about is looks, right? It looked like Windows 95, whatever, kind of still does, whatever. But in terms of the functionality, it was doing things the other DAWs couldn't do long before its release. And I don't know if it's true that VST support came after the original release. It might have. I can't remember. I know we were using some DX stuff, but I think it was already doing VSTs at launch. The replugs were definitely VST, even though they're internal VSTs.
Of course, this would change over time, but I think he succeeded in sticking true to his original reason for creating Reaper. Many updates would happen very rapidly.
I don't know that this guy's actually got into why Reaper was created. Reaper was created because the DAWs around at the time couldn't do what they wanted. Remember, I was right next to where, Pro Tools marketing arm was, the Conservatory of Recording Arts in Arizona. And, we'd have the teachers and the students come by, the guys who actually were Pro Tools experts, and we would do a race of like editing toms or editing drums. And back then Reaper didn't exist. I was using Vegas, and it was my shtick. We'd start, I'd finish, I'd drive down to 7-Eleven and grab everybody chocolate coffee and come back. And the guy on Pro Tools was still editing. That's why Reaper was created. The programs at the time weren't doing what we wanted. And a big part of this was the Crossfade community, who was, there were Vegas users, Acid users, Sonar users that were all looking to come up with, some kind of DAW that would do what they wanted. And I was part of that community. I had this hand-drawn notebook of what I wanted to see in a DAW. And it was, you can go back to the history of Ardor or Harrison Mixbus, or you can look at the real history of Reaper, and you'll see that these were the features that I really wanted to see. And of course, lots of this stuff is Justin's, but say the vision for the audio engineering side, I don't know if I've ever said it this blatantly before, but that's me. For a lot of the features you guys are talking about, or most people talk about. But, I had no inkling of, I want to be able to script this and do all this user customizable stuff. That's all Justin, and it's incredible. And if you don't know about that in Reaper, you can just go and build your own stuff. Let's see. Let me go to, let's say this 3-band EQ right here. I can go and edit, and actually, here's you can build your own plugins inside Reaper while you're going, if you know what you're doing. It's absolutely incredible. And that's something that's Justin stuff. That's not me stuff. But audio engineering, that's me.
During the first phase of Reaper, including adding MIDI control surface support, ability to render MP3 files, and the ability to change tempo of your projects with automation. People who started using Reaper early on,
that was one of the big pains in Vegas, right? Is you couldn't have multiple tempos in the same project, but from right away Reaper had that.
Were fans of its simple approach and the fact that everything loaded so quickly.
That was another thing. Reaper was tiny. It's still tiny, but at the time it would fit on a floppy disk, and you didn't even have to install it. You could just run it depending if you made like a USB key or whatever. It was so small and so fast, and it's still. I mean, if you go to DawBench, the guys who actually do all the benchmarking for computer builds and plug-in tests and things like that, they still use Reaper for that because its efficiency is insane.
Receive improved reverb algorithm as well as some improvements to its basic MIDI editing window. And lastly, one of the most impressive features would be Re-EQ, which was an unlimited band EQ. Looking through the version history, and thank God Justin provides this on the Reaper website, It is sort of insane the amount and frequency of updates he put.
Yeah, there were times where Reaper was getting updates multiple times a day, and like people just couldn't imagine it. And it had a lot. We were listening to the actual users, which is something that so many companies claim they do, but they usually don't. But in this case, we're listening to the actual user base, and updates were coming out fast and furious. Now it's not so crazy. Like sometimes when I log in on Reaper, it tells me there's an update. But I mean, before, like it was. In 2005, 2006, it was daily. It was just constant updates, and pretty incredible. So he's already at Reaper 2 though on this video. This is way past. Like most of the history of Reaper happened a lot earlier than that. The important stuff. There's again me and Christoph Theobald should be mentioned in here, but I don't see us
pushed out for this program. We'd only need to wait a measly year for Reaper to get its next large update. Version 2 would be the release that saw some of the most important core additions to Reaper that we all take for granted in DAWs nowadays. We got different modes for elastic pitch, which lets you stretch a sample out without losing quality or tone. And on top of that, Reaper received its own pitch shifting plugin called Repitch to complement its vocal tuning plugin called Retune. This release would also contain a large expansion of the mixer window, making it so you could view your effects and sends more easily. Looking back through images of Reaper at this point versus what it looks like now, it's clear Justin cares deeply about the efficiency and features of Reaper rather than its style.
Well, not just Justin. Again, I'm Mr. Form follows function and WYSIWYG, right? Like, you look at my guitars, look at anything else. I just want I'd like it to look nice. That's fine. But I care a lot more about the function. Like I always used to say, tape can't see your tattoos. It doesn't matter what you're wearing if you're making a crappy song. It doesn't matter what you're wearing if you're making a good song. And one of the things I always said is if your customers as an audio engineer care more about what colors and pictures are on your computer screen than the sound coming out of your speakers, you're already in bigger trouble than anybody can help you with.
It'd come into its own by now, and most visual changes would be subtle as the workflow had been well established. This version would also bring 3 new...
This looks like there's some white tie stuff already on Reaper 2. I think that's about when he came on.
Plugins, which were Redelay, Revoice, and Revocode. The delay plugin was, as its name suggests, just a plugin to generate delays. Revoice was a pitch shifting plugin for vocal performances that can be controlled with MIDI, and the vocoder was a simple modulation vocoding plugin. During 07 and 08, Reaper saw a huge surge in popularity as it had gained enough features and stock sounds to compete with its peers.
It's not stock sounds. It's true, Reaper does have resynth, but it's not like Logic where you come with a whole bunch of like virtual instruments and stuff. It's not that it comes with stock sounds and there's a lot of reasons why Reaper kind of picked up right around then, and it wasn't because it came with more sounds.
Peers and was extremely affordable. On top of all that, Reaper was also capable of using its MIDI editor in drum mode, so you could attach multiple sounds into one window to create your patterns more easily. One of the other benefits to Reaper...
Doesn't Cubase... I thought Cubase has like the ruling drum editor right now, right? For MIDI stuff. I mean, the Reaper one definitely works, but I think, I think the Cubase one's probably really killer.
Was that early on, it was compatible with both Mac and Windows, getting many updates for Mac during this time to remain competitive with Logic. Unlike its older brother FL Studio, who took nearly 20 fucking years to add Mac support. It's okay, FL, I still love you. Anyways, I highly recommend watching the interview that Sonic Scoop did with Justin in 2015, as he gives some insight into his reasoning for wanting to create Reaper and his background with music and software. Only around a year later, we'd see Reaper 3 come out on May 22, 2009. This was the version that saw many functional updates, like getting separated automation lanes in the playlist and being able to have multiple projects open with tabs. Many improvements would also come to the MIDI editor, allowing you to edit multiple items in one place and being able to edit inline.
I'm still so bad with the MIDI editor. It's funny because people always ask me, hey, how do I do this in Reaper? How do I do that? And a lot of times, I really only use the Reaper feature set of stuff that I need, and that was really important to me. And so I don't always know how to use a lot of Reaper. In fact, I still don't even use Razor edits or whatever that thing is called. I don't even exactly know what it does. I guess I should learn.
Visually, though, the default theme became much darker and muted, making Reaper look a lot more modern. On top of that, the little Grim Reaper icon was no more, sadly. I kind of like that little guy, but instead we have an old iteration of the current guitar pick-esque icon.
So that's from White Tie.
Instead of
that's
color.
Definitely White
Something
Tie.
I haven't mentioned until now was the fact that Reaper is absurdly lightweight. The entire size of the uncompressed program for version 3 was under 100 megabytes. Something I can definitely appreciate with programs and games getting larger and larger as time goes on. Along with automation lanes, version 3 would also come with the ability to copy and paste automation from different parameters, so you no longer needed to manually edit each one. We'd also get many performance updates to Reaper's sampling plugin called Resamplematic 5000. It's a pretty capable sampler.
Yeah,
with
if you
all
ever
the
get a chance,
necessary
watch a
functions.
video on how Justin himself uses Resamplematic. It's pretty epic. That guy's, I mean, he's a serious genius. He turns Reaper into an instrument.
Like pitch, attack, or release, although it's definitely not as advanced as something like Alchemy from Logic. Like I had mentioned before, version 3 had many functional updates, and most of the stock plugins like EQ, delay, and reverb were upgraded to work smoother and better overall. I installed all the versions of Reaper just to see what they were like to use, and by this version, Reaper had come into its own and was definitely on its way to becoming a fully stacked DAW. Reaper 4 would come on.
I don't know what stacks you were missing. I mean, I was definitely mixing albums with Chester Bennington. And I think before Reaper was even officially released over at Cherokee Studios. Maybe it's already on version 1. But it's definitely before version 3 or 4.
Only 2 years after version 3, but something interesting outside the program would also happen, and that was the Reaper blog. This blog would detail the happenings at the time related to the music software industry, Reaper itself, and also included some news posts and tutorials. Part of this blog was also showing off artists who had created music with Reaper to not only give them promo, but to show off.
This is John Tidy's channel. It's not official Reaper or anything, but he is aside from Kenny, maybe, if you want to know something about Reaper, most likely John Tidy has a video on it, or you can get a hold of him directly. He's easy to get a hold of.
Off what could be done with the software. One of those artists was Camellia, who has a YouTube channel and makes insanely high BPM mishmashes of dubstep, drum and bass, and trap. Apologies if I pronounced the name wrong. Aside from that, version 4 would also receive some new plugins, one of which being Resurround, which is a digital multi-speaker panning plugin that supported an unlimited number of virtual speakers. This would also mark a point in time where you could create your own themes for Reaper, something I believe other software sorely needs. Thank God FL Studio is at.
I think you were able to do themes in Reaper 1. You were able to customize stuff pretty early on, but I'm not, maybe Reaper 4 is when you had switchable themes? No. I was already making themes. Reaper 4, I think, came out after I moved back to Hawaii, and I was definitely doing my own themes before then. I'm not sure how accurate this is.
Adding this in version 21. There's something very freeing about being able to customize the programs you use to your liking and style, just like how people customize their phone screens or desktop backgrounds to be personalized. We'd also see a big improvement to the stem rendering capabilities, which if you're not a producer, stems are each different audio track being rendered out as a separate sound file like WAV or MP3. This is useful because it allows engineers and producers to work on tracks without needing any of the plugins associated with each track, since they're baked into the rendered file. Lastly, this version would mark the point at which the Reaper logo would be finalized, and still looks like what we see today in version 6. Reaper 5 would come 4 years later on August 12, 2015. Looking through the patch notes of this version, an absurd amount of fixes and performance updates would come along with version 5.
And that's usual, man. We only see part of the updates. Usually if you go to help, let's see, changelog. So you can always go through here and take a look at what's been changed. And it's usually a lot of stuff, man. Justin is crazy. Look at this thing. All this stuff. And then you can go back and look at the older changelogs.
If you're at all interested in this type of stuff, I highly recommend going to Reaper's website and looking through their version history, along with downloading any old version you want to mess with. The best part, all these old versions are free to download. Anyways, version 5 would be the first time we saw support for VST3 plugins. VST3 is important because it marked a time where VST plugins
Is that true? I don't know if that's true.
got a huge performance boost using much less of your computer's resources, which works in
I don't know if that's true at all. VST3 just was supposed to give us side chains in an easier way and stuff, but we're already side chaining.
tandem with Reaper's lightweight approach to music production. They're also more accurate with automation and sample rate, and best of all, allow for resizing of plugins where the interface scales with size. It may not seem like a big
I think you could do that before.
deal, but holy shit does it suck having a tiny plugin on a 4K monitor that can't be changed in size. In terms of new plugins though, we get probably the coolest feature in Reaper, and that's the addition of Super 8. Now before we get into what this plugin does, I think it's important.
Yeah, so it's funny because this guy has a totally different use case for Reaper than a lot of the audio engineers do. But Super 8, go watch a video on Justin with Super 8. Like, it's just crazy what he does with this stuff.
To mention something else here. Super 8 is a JS plugin, which is a Reaper native plugin that only works within Reaper, unlike VSTs. All of your JS plugins in Reaper have the option to view the actual code of the plugin
so that's
written
what I
in
showed you earlier.
Rescript and is modifiable. It's pretty insane that you're allowed to modify plugins on the code level for your liking if you know what you're doing. Unfortunately, I have no idea how to write computer code, but still I have not seen this feature in any other DAW. Anyways, Super 8 is essentially a cell-based looping plugin that lets you have 8 different loops within it that can be messed with to your liking. We'd wait another 4 years, and on December 3rd, 2019, Reaper 6 would come out, which is the current version in the modern day. Many upgrades to the stock plugins like Sample-O-Matic, EQ, and Reverb would come along with version 6.
And Spectral Peaks, which is super awesome.
All of the user interface now scaled properly, so you could work on non-common resolutions and Reaper would display correctly. It also received some nice updates to the mixer, like being able to horizontally scroll rather than being displayed in its native arrange view, as well as being able to group and label your effects. We'd also see a new way to edit with Reaper's Razor Edit feature that allows you to draw, move, copy, or transform the selected media, whether it's samples, MIDI, or automation envelopes. It was a total blast looking at one of the new kids on the block when it comes to music software. It's so clear to me how much Justin cares about this program, and I would 100% suggest you guys give Reaper a shot if you're into music production or thinking about starting out. It's a super easy DAW to jump into and learn. It's not overly complex, it's not too bare bones, it's sort of like that one fairy tale with Goldilocks and the soup that's just right. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed learning about Reaper with me. Thank you guys for watching, stay safe out there, and I'll see you in the next video.
All right, I am croaking. I am probably just going to go home. But thanks for tuning in. Tomorrow, hopefully, I'll be actually doing some mixing and maybe doing